Welcome to the channel. This is Jason. In this series, we're going to be working with Supabase. If you're unfamiliar with Supabase, it's very similar to Firebase. If you see here on the website, it calls itself an open source Firebase alternative. And it works very similarly, although they don't have as much features. You'll see here they only support the database, authentication, storage, and then functions, which gives us enough to build like a pretty good application, to be honest. It'd be nice to have more features, right? But I mean, Supabase is fairly new. They started in 2019. And I mean, and it's open source, which is amazing, right? Because if you're using Firebase, you're locked in, and if you want to migrate, you can't just pick up and leave. Like it's there's a lot of steps you have to do if you want to migrate from Firebase. In the future, currently Supabase has support for Swift. It's built by the community though, by the Supabase community. Even though this is built by the Supabase community, it still works perfectly fine. I plan on doing a whole series on Supabase, like the auth, using the auth, the database, and the storage, and probably the functions as well in Swift. All right, and if we go to the authentication section, we'll see that they support, like, if we go to social login, Supabase supports a lot of providers. Like, you can sign in with anything, which is pretty cool. And if we go to the Apple, and this is the login with Apple documentation, but we need a few more steps since we're working with Swift. Let's look up Supabase Swift and a client library for Supabase. Let's do social login implementation. And you'll see here, if you pull up this GitHub, and if you follow these steps for like the for the sign in, the social sign in, you'll see that you actually get something like this, right? Watch. So it actually opens up a Safari session, and it asks you to log in like that, which is not a very native way to do it, especially like for an iOS app, right? And I'm pretty sure if you try to upload this to the App Store, you will probably get denied. They'll be like, what is that? And they won't let you in. Did a little digging and I found there's a way around that. And it's not mentioned in the documentation, so hopefully they don't change it. But they still should work. And that's what we're going to be going through in this video. All right, I'm going to open up Xcode. I hit new project. And we're going to do app, and we're going to be working with SwiftUI for this series. Let me know if you want to see this in UIKit. It'll be a very similar implementation. There won't be any major differences except for like the UI layout, of course. So we'll call this Supabase Auth. And let's do SwiftUI, Swift. Okay, create. All right, and one thing to note is this implementation will be very similar to the Firebase way of doing it. And you can actually see the course I made, the chat app in SwiftUI, if you want to get a better understanding of how it's done in SwiftUI with Firebase, because we're going to follow very similar steps to get our sign in with Apple set up. So if you're familiar with Firebase, but not too familiar with sign in with Apple using Firebase, then you might want to check that out. All right, but now we're working with Supabase, so let's get to that. All right, so let's bring in the Supabase package. So we're going to look up Supabase Swift. Go to the GitHub. It should be one of the first 3 results. And you'll see Supabase community -Swift. We're going to copy this, add packages, and then you paste it in here and add package. All right, you add package. Okay, so I'm going to create a sign in button really quickly. Do sign in with Apple, and we might as well just create a button. So we'll see action label. So action, let's do print Apple, Apple, and then text Apple, and foreground color dot black, and let's open up the terminal. Yeah, we see Apple, and let's leave it like that for now. All right, so when we sign in with Apple, what do we want to happen? So most likely than not, this would be like a sign-in screen. So let's create a new file, SwiftUI file. We'll call this sign-in view, and we can move this in there. And in here, we can display our sign-in view for now. So for our sign-in view, let's create a sign-in view model. That'll be a class. I'm going to do this above here so we don't have 2 separate files and we can see it. View model. This will be an observable object. And we'll have @state object. We'll say view model equal sign-in view model. Oh, we need a var. So when we tap it, we're going to want to call viewModel dot something, right? So let's create the function called sign in with Apple. And I believe we'll need to make this async throws. I'm not going to add it yet because we're going to stamp it out first. So that's what we'll call here. And I'm gonna change this just to print Apple yet until we stamp out what we want to call here. So this will be our sign in with Apple function. And I'm building it this way because I'm assuming this will be implemented in a bigger project, right? So I don't want all the sign-in logic to be in one file or one place. So we're going to create a sign-in view model, and then we're going to create an auth manager that's going to interact with Supabase. So let's do that now. Swift file, auth manager, whoa. And this can be a class, auth manager. On our auth manager, let's make this a singleton private init, and then we'll say static let shared equal auth manager. All right, then we have a function. We'll call this sign in with Apple, and we're gonna need a client from Supabase, and this requires a Supabase URL, which I believe is the URL of your project, and a Supabase key. So let's go open up the browser, go to supabase.com, and you guys will have to create an account if you don't have one. You can use I'll use GitHub to sign in, and you get 2 free projects, so you won't be charged for this. I think once you reach 10,000 users, then you'll have to upgrade your plan. But I mean, if you're at 10,000 users, then it's worth the investment. Our project name, we'll call this Supabase Series, and database password. This is a strong. What should I do for password? Pick your region. I don't know if you can change this because I know in Google, whatever, what's it called? In Firebase, it doesn't let you change it once you set it. And then, yeah, we're using the free plan. We're creating a project called Supabase Series. And we want to copy this. This is the URL. And this right here is the key. So we're going to put this here. Oh, and this has to be a URL. So I'm going to say URL string, and then we'll just force unwrap it. Command B. Succeeded. All right, now I'm gonna show you guys what function we're gonna use because this isn't in the documentation, right? So it's because let's go to the documentation actually. So if you look into the sign-in with Swift, this is for the email stuff. But if you look into the social sign-in implementation or the social login implementation, they kind of they got some weird stuff going on, right? And like they'll present a Safari view controller, which again for Apple and iOS, it's not the best way to go about it. But a way around that is, and it looks like we'll have to mark this async throws. All right, and this is the one. Let me go back to it. Sign in with ID token. This takes in some credentials that we're gonna generate, and it returns a session, which basically signs the user in. Haha. So let's hit that one, and we need to create the credentials up here. Open ID, go, and what we're gonna use in this one will be .apple, and we'll require the ID token to be passed into this function, and we'll require a nonce. And again, you might be asking, why am I doing it this way? I think it's helpful because we have no documentation to reference, so I'm doing it this way to see why we're gonna do it the way we're doing it. And we can assign creds here. Hit Command B, cannot find. Instead of doing it this way, because we get a weird error, we can go to the credentials right here, and then we just hit .init, and we'll hit option, and we'll get all of this. And now we can do .apple and say ID token and then nonce, and we'll close these, and we can get rid of this first line. Hit Command B on this try. Oh wait, I believe. There we go. And this will return us a session. So, all right. So it looks like we're on our end. We're gonna have to generate an ID token and a nonce. And one cheeky way of doing this, and I say cheeky, is because you can just reference the Firebase documentation. We'll go to Firebase, sign in with Apple, and I believe you need to do Apple platforms. If you have trouble finding this, there we go. It's this one. Get started with Firebase authentication on Apple platforms. And why did it load like that? It knows what we're up to. Here, let's go incognito. There we go. Weird. And we go to sign in with Apple, and we don't need any of this. What we're here to take is this right here. So this generates a random nonce, And this is what Firebase uses for their implementation of the sign in with Apple flow. So we can borrow this and let's put it in the view controller for now. We'll most likely create a helper function, and let's actually do that because this sign in view model will get very messy. So let's say we'll call this sign in Apple. So create a class, sign in Apple, and here we'll have this random not string. Okay, and then we need this one as well, and we need this. This is the last thing we need. So we also need to import CryptoKit. And if you're curious why we're doing it this way, you can see you will send so we go up here, for every sign-in request, generate a random string of nonce, which will be used to make sure the ID token you get was granted specifically in response to your app's authentication request. And then why did we use this function? You send the SHA-256 hash sign-in request, which Apple will pass unchanged. All right, so last thing we did was we copied this and we put it in here. And I believe the formatting is a little off, so we're gonna highlight all of it and do Control-I. And this has to be moved to the top. We can remove this available, iOS 13. And we need to import CryptoKit. Import CryptoKit, Command B. What else are we missing? Oh, we're missing authentication services. This is why we moved it into a separate file, because it'll get crazy otherwise. Okay, so there's two issues. So we need to conform to this delegate. Let's create an extension on sign in Apple, and I believe it's AS authorization control delegate. The other one is auth controller presentation delegate. Oh no, context providing. And to use this, we'll have to conform the sign in with Apple class to NS object. Command B. And one thing I realized is we'll have to, actually no, we can keep this private. The only one that shouldn't be private is this one. Move it to the top. Fix. So we're gonna need access to a view here. So there's two issues that are gonna pop up. All right, so so there's some things we need to clean up actually before we even conform to this. So I'm gonna delete this and we'll have an error, right? The first thing I want to address is right here for this presentation context provider. We can't really use self because right here we're not like this would have to be a view controller if we wanted to use self. And since we're working with SwiftUI, we have to figure out how we can get whatever the top view is. And I'm still in incognito because it wasn't working. So I'm gonna say SwiftUI how to get the top VC. Get the topmost UI view controller. There's one of these answers that is really good. Oh, this one. So we're gonna go down to the bottom of this file and add this extension. Hit Command B. Get this warning, but should be fine. And we go back to and this is how we use it. I'm just gonna copy this part because I want to use a guardlet. So let's do that up here. Guardlet. So let's do it at the top. That way, if we're unable to access the top view controller, we just don't do anything at all. Because right here we'll change the current nonce, and we don't want to do all that. If we can't even get the top VC, else we're gonna return, and we'll pass the top VC here. Command B, build failed. Oh, because of this. I believe we'll get a different error now. No. And now it's asking us it's asking us for a presentation anchor, which again we would have to have access to a view controller. And one way to circumvent this is you create an extension on the view controller, extension on UI view controller, and in this extension you make UI view controller conform to this context providing. Hit Command B, and you fix the stub, and you can just return self.view, I believe window, and then you force unwrap it. Now we can hit fix, and then this won't matter. So we can just return an AS presentation anchor with a frame of 0 or so. And now the last part we'll take from the Firebase stuff, from the Firebase section, is we can just copy these two functions and put them in here. And let's highlight them to fix the formatting. Control-I. And we can get rid of this part because this is for the sign in with Firebase. And we can get rid of this too. Initialize a Firebase credential, including the username. Yep. So in these functions, now we have access to our nonce and our ID token. And that's because we're using the AOS authorization controller, which is the sheet that Apple presents when you want the user to sign in with Apple. And if you remember in our auth manager, we can use the ID token and the nonce to actually sign in the user with Supabase. Now it's just a matter of how we want to implement this in our project. One thing we need to account for is how we want to notify when this is complete, because we have no real way of doing that right now. We can create a completion handler, call this completion handler, and in the completion handler we can pass in a result and return void. For now, let's put a string and then an error. Let's see if that gives us any issues. Oh, to get rid of that, we need to add some parentheses and make this optional. There we go. So we need to pass the ID token and the nonce to this completion handler. So I'm going to create a struct called Apple, what should we call this? Apple, call this result. And this will have a nonce. Well, let's do ID token first. And a nonce. Both of those are strings. And we could put this in here. Command B. So we'll have to add the completion handler to this start sign in with Apple flow. We'll just say completion. And that's because we want to know when this finishes, right? So let's copy this. Command B. If we can copy this over. And now that we have the completion here, we can do something similar like they did here with the current nonce equal to nonce. We can say completion handler equals completion. Command B. And then in here we can say completion handler equals, we'll say let completion equal completion handler, and then we can set the Apple result equals sign in Apple result. The ID token is ID token string, and the nonce, and we'll call completion dot access dot Apple result. Command B. Succeeded. All right. Now one thing we need to do too, or we can do, is we can account for these failures. So we'll say failure, and we'll just throw this error, and we can do that here. Command B. And you could create a custom error for this, and you might want to, right? Because we'll have a chance for failure right here. Right here, this is a particular type of failure. So if it's unable to get the top VC, you can throw a different type of error for that part. And you might want to specify, like, if you're not able to get the identity token, or you're unable to serialize the data. Or is there anywhere else? Nope. Now let's try to implement this in our project. So, how do we want to do this? Should we quickly implement it in our view control? Let's do something. I'm going to refactor this in a little bit. I just want to put this here to test it right now. Sign in Apple. So let's say sign in Apple dot start sign in flow result print, or let's switch on the result print. This will be the Apple result, and this will be error. And let's resume the preview. We're gonna delete this anyways in a little bit. All right, I'm gonna build this right now. Let's see if I forgot one of the most crucial things about this project, and I didn't even mention it, is you need to have the Apple developer account. And if once you have that, then we can go here to capabilities and hit sign in with Apple, and we should be good to go now. So now if we go to sign in view, we click here and nothing happens, which is fair. I believe I need to run it on the simulator. We didn't get an error though, which is good. It's a good sign, at least. All right, so it's running on the simulator now, and we hit sign in with Apple. Aha! So this is showing up, and might as well, I'm gonna sign in. So now I set up my Apple ID account on this simulator, and let's hit continue with password. Oh, I gotta sign in. Oh, and we got the result came through, and we were able to print it. One thing before we're able to send this to Supabase, we need to go here to Supabase Series, to our project, and we go to authentication, providers. We need to enable Apple. This service ID and the secret key, it's being used if you're using like the Supabase way of the signing with Apple, which is not the way we were doing it here, because that doesn't provide us like the native UI and the native like sign-in flow. So what I did is I'm gonna go here to the project, copy the bundle identifier, and then just paste it in here. To be honest, this shouldn't matter, because the way we implementing it, the only thing that'll that'll matter is the bundle ID, because the Supabase will reference the bundle ID to make sure it's being ran on the correct or whichever is allowed. So we have it enabled. So really quickly, let's try to test this since we're able to get the nonce and the ID token. So in here we can reference our auth manager .share.sign in, and this will be the Apple result .id token, and this will be the Apple result .nonce. And this has to be wrapped in a task. So we need to say task and then try await, and this will give us a session, I believe. Or actually no, I don't think we'll return anything in this function. Let's print the session though. So there's a session and there's a session user, I believe. There's an access token and a user. If we go to our sign in view, let's try to run this. Replace, and I'm gonna open up Supabase really quickly and go to users, and we see we have no users. Let me refresh this, just to show you I'm not doing any magic tricks. All right, now we go, where's the simulator? All right, so I believe this is live. Let's hit this, sign in. Yeah. All right, continue. Let's sign in. All right, so this is what was printed. Go true, which is what they use for the authentication. It's written in Go. The Supabase authentication. It's written in Go, and they use Go true is like the framework they created for it. Well, I don't know if they created it, but they use it. But anyways, back to our responses here. So this was a session and this was a user. Let's look at the user first. We have here my email address, my old email address, because they took it away. UF took it away. Email verify equals true. Anything else? It's pretty cool. Does it have my name anywhere? And up here's the session stuff. And in the session we have an access token. Provider. Let's go back to Supabase. Refresh. Bam! The user is here, and we have a UUID or user UID. So in our authentication, our user is here. It's pretty cool. We got it working. Now I'm gonna go back to our project, and in the auth manager, let's see if we can create a function for like accessing the current session or something like that. So I'm just gonna call this current for now and see what Supabase gives us. It gives us a session, returns the session, refreshing if necessary. So let's see, try await. This is marked async throws, and I believe this is a function, right? And this returns a session. So let's say session equals session, and we can print session, Command B, and we'll go to a content view, and on up here, let's call. Well, first we have to create a task and then try await. Auth manager .share .current. Let's rename this. So this would be called get current session. And we go to the content view, go back to share to get current session, and let's run this. And I'm running this on the simulator, not the preview, because we have that whole Apple sign-in thing. And it looks like the session is still persisted. So we would technically still be signed in. We just haven't handled any of that flow. So our session is successfully loaded up. Now we need to refactor, right? So we're gonna go to our sign-in view. And first thing off the back is I'm gonna move this whole function into this, and then we have to move this up here, and we're refactoring. We can get rid of the preview and we can get rid of this stuff. All right, now one thing you may have noticed is we need this function is doing some asynchronous stuff, so we need to either make it async await or add a completion handler to it, an escaping one. And this is when it's up to you, right? Like you could use you can use a completion handler, and it'd be very straightforward. You just do a completion handler and then add escaping, and then you can pass whatever you want to the completion handler. Or you could use async await, and that using async await means we have to implement some changes to the way we're doing it now, because this is a completion handler. And if we go on Google and search up check continuation Swift, basically looking up continuations in Swift, and Apple has some good resources and videos from WWDC when they announced this that are really helpful and explain how they're using it to convert a completion handler to basically convert an asynchronous call that's using a completion handler to one that's using async await. Two places we could handle that. We could do it in here, but it makes more sense to do it in this one. And what you would do is you would create this. You can name it the same. Actually, yeah. I'm gonna name this sign in with Apple Flow, and this will be the start sign in with Apple Flow, and this will be async throws, and we wanna return a sign in with Apple result. So in order to use the continuation in Swift, we need to say try await with checked, and we need to say throw in continuation since we're gonna be able to throw an error, and this will be continuation. Am I spelling continuation right? All right, oh, it has some extra parentheses and curly braces. I'm gonna make this function private so you can't call it from outside of this class. And I think it's better that way. That way, people who are implementing this have to use the async throws one instead of the completion handler. It's up to you if you want to implement it like this. And now we'll call self.signin with Apple Flow. We have a result, and we can just call completion, or we can call continuation dot resume with, and we'll just say result, and we can return. And let's just use weak self here. Make this a question mark. Extra. Oh, that went away. Now we have an issue because this is where we implemented it in our view model. But in our sign in Apple class, we have no errors, and it looks good. So let's go back to the sign in view. And it looks like we'll have to change our logic. I'm gonna cut this out. You might need this. And now I believe we can just say try await sign in Apple dot start sign in flow. And let's go back to it. This returns us the sign in with Apple results. So we can just say Apple result equal that. And we don't even need the task actually. We can cut this and hit Command B. And this would work. Now something we could add here too is we could make this function return like a user. So maybe we want like the username. I don't know if we still have it here, access to it in the terminal. It looks like all I had was the email. They didn't give me a name or anything. Yep, just an email. And one thing to know with the Apple or the sign in with Apple is sometimes you'll have like the relay thing, and that's something to be mindful or aware of. Like sometimes you'll have like the user might not give you access to their actual email, so you have like some random numbers and then @relay. I believe you can still email that email. I'm not sure, but now our sign in flow is a lot nicer, and we can actually create a task here. We'll do try await view model, and let's wrap this in a do catch block so we can we actually perform some error handling. View model dot start sign in. We'll have to make this a try await. Command B, print error signing in. All right, so I'm gonna do something very basic. I'm gonna create a struct, call this app user, and we're gonna use this is gonna act like our user, but we're not gonna store anything special in here. We're just gonna store the email, and I believe this is optional, right? Our email, yeah, it's an optional. And we also, is a UID open somewhere? And let's grab the UID. So let UID equals short. So we'll have this return an app user, and might as well have this one return an app user as well. This can be session dot user dot email. Oh no, wait, this is a ID. This one is session dot user dot email. And we'll return that here as well. Command B. We should have some errors in our app. Oh, this is a UUID. A string created from UUID such as, all right. UUID string, Command B now. Haha. This builds, and we should have errors, right? Or I guess it's saying we're discarding the result. So let's return the app user. We can just return this. And let's say let app user equals that. All right, and then in our content view, let's create a binding variable. Call this app user. Let's make it optional. And we'll set app user. Go to this. And so if let app user, else we'll show the sign in view. And I believe we need I think we can put this all in the Z stack. And I need to paste this at the bottom of the Z stack and move this inside the Z stack. Hit Command B. Requires a valid identifier. Let's hit fix. Constant, do nil. Oh, this is a equal. And now, oh, we need to fix. And really quickly, we'll just create a, whoa, wrong. So really quickly, we're gonna create a new view, SwiftUI view, and we'll just call this HomeView. And in the HomeView, we will pass in the app user. And let's just create a VStack with the, we're just gonna have app user dot UID and app user dot email. Command B, no email. Constant dot init. Let's open up the preview. So we're gonna go here and leave this canvas. Oh, let's silence this for now using constant dot nil. Go back to the home view. All right, and let's go to the sign-in view or the content view. And in here we can instantiate the home view, and we'll just pass in the app user. Make this one optional. Actually, we'll make this a state var, and then we'll just pass in app user. We can do that. We'll change this to a state var, and that gets rid of the need for this constant. We can paste this in here. See how our content view looks now. We should still see the sign-in screen. And now what we can do is we'll go to our sign-in view. So I changed the content view to, I changed this app user to be a state var, and it's gonna be nil at launch. Then on up here we'll have this run, and in our sign-in view we can create a binding app binding var app user, and we say self dot app user equals app user. I believe we'll get an error down here. Fix that. We can just init or dot constant, and we'll have to make this optional. So we make this optional. Now we go back to our content view, and it's asking us to pass in the app user, and we can just pass in our app user here. Now we can run this. You see it loads up. The video has gotten quite long, so I'm gonna wrap it up here for now. In the next video, we're gonna handle the sign out flow, maybe do a little bit more cleaning up, and we'll continue with the series. We'll probably do maybe Google sign in, and then like regular email sign in. So yeah, let me know if you guys run into any issues or have any questions down below. I appreciate you if you made it this far. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Check me out on Twitter, Jason Dubon YT, YouTube, and y'all have a good one, man. Keep coding. Let me know what you guys build with this. Supabase is pretty cool. Firebase has to watch out. Supabase is coming for them. So I'll catch you on the next one.